Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Amanda Ribas to defeat Maycee Barber. And I'm here to recap UFC on ABC 5, which I thought was an awesome event, and that's why I'd like to start by bitching about something. I don't understand how they gave Fight of the Night to Topuria versus Emmett when Peak versus Mariscal was on the same card. Peak versus Mariscal was action-packed, a lot more fun and a lot more competitive. You could argue it was even a dominant performance from Mariscal, but it was still competitive. Each guy had big moments. In the main event, Topuria had every big moment and just about every small moment as well. So it was thrilling in a lot of ways, but that's really just because of Ilia Topuria's performance, which I'll get into now. I'll start by talking about the main event and work my way down to the bottom. Topuria versus Emmett was one-sided, like I said, but the performance was exceptional. I look at Ilia Topuria now, and I want to see him skip the Calvin Katers of the world, and I want to see him go straight to Volkanovski, Yair Rodriguez, and Max Holloway. Those are the three guys I'd like to see him fight. And I understand they're all booked for fights. Max is fighting the Korean Zombie, by the way. I think that was booked last week, which, whatever. Not such a great matchup, but cool enough. But I think Topuria, man, he is in the realm of fighting for a title in his next fight. And that would probably have to be on short notice or whatever. But his next fight, I expect to be a title eliminator. He's now number 5, at least, in the world. That's where Josh Emmett was. And I think rankings-wise, he skips over, Calvin Kattar and Arnold Allen and Brian Ortega, maybe. I don't know where the hell he is in the rankings. But I know Emmett was number 5, and now Topuria, he is number 5, and he looked like a top 5 fighter in the world. He looked like a fucking champion. I know he didn't get Emmett out of there like Yair Rodriguez did, but he beat him up for 5 rounds, looked really good, really, really well-conditioned as well. And I understand, again, like I said during Cannonier versus Vettori recap, it's easier to look well-conditioned when you're winning every second of the fight. But still, Josh Emmett is dangerous, kept him on his toes, had a few little moments, small moments, the end of round 3, beginning of round 5. But in general, this was a shutout for Topuria. And I think he looked phenomenal. He hit a takedown in round 5, which was very impressive. I thought it was a beautiful double leg in the center of the octagon, right when he needed to. It was cool to show that he had a takedown that deep into the fight over a guy who's pretty tough to take down, Josh Emmett. But also it took away any chance of Josh Emmett getting the upset victory, the comeback. Because Josh, in the beginning of round 5, was, trying to pump up the crowd and doing a little taunting and really going for it. So he took the wind out of his sails, and that was kind of impressive on a tactical level. But in general, he beat the shit out of Josh Emmett. And that's where I have to give Josh Emmett credit, specifically in round 4, when he got the shit kicked out of him in the final minute and a half. That was not a bad round up until the final minute and a half, but then it was on. It reminded me of Rockhold versus Weidman, round 3. And just like that fight, he survived, sitting there getting pounded on in the full mount to the end of the round. But he survived. He showed that he could have checked out at any moment. He probably wanted to on some level, but on the level that matters, he didn't want to. And he kept fighting one side, the other side, trying to hip escape, and made it to round 5 where he gave himself a shot at getting the knockout. And he went for it in the first minute of round 5. So Josh Emmett, if nothing else, and really nothing else, he showed his spirit in this fight. And the guy's still a fucking warrior at 38 years old or whatever. He looked like a guy who's not ready to hang him up. And that was awesome. But this was the Topuria show. Again, Topuria, my estimation of him as a fighter has skyrocketed. And I expected him to win, too. But I didn't expect him to dominate like this. I thought maybe, he could look that good, but he'd get a finish early. But again, fighting hard for 25 minutes raises my estimation of him as a fighter. Just a great performance. Speaking of which, Maycee Barber cracked that chin. Maycee Barber and Amanda Ribas, that was, Fight of the night, I think that was a better candidate for fight of the night than Topuria versus Emmett. Still not as good as Peak versus Mariscal, but still a co-main event that was a bloody war. I don't know if they both broke each other's noses, but it looked that way. Ribas was bleeding from the beginning, and she looked really good throughout. But Maycee Barber was, she was in that fight on the ground. She wouldn't be controlled, and on the feet, she was the more physical fighter, really, winning that physicality battle, roughing up Amanda Ribas. She's a tough girl to wrangle, Maycee, although she was wrangled with the head and arm throw, which, again, like I mentioned in the pre-fight video, and like Dominic Cruz mentioned in the commentary, if it works, it works. And that shit works. But Maycee was still not to be dominated on the ground. And on the feet, she's just very powerful, Maycee Barber. One of the more powerful fighters in the division, the flyweight division. And she beat the shit out of Amanda Ribas in the end. Started spamming some head kicks, but I think she landed all three of them in the end. And the final one rocked her. And then she cracked her with a big overhand right, and that got the ball rolling. Amanda Ribas, she has a weak chin. She does have a weak chin. She might never be knocked out again, but she's definitely got a weak chin. If she doesn't get knocked out again, it's only because she's fighting 125-pound women. But you don't see women that weigh that much get knocked out that often. And this was a TKO, but her chin failed her. That's the distinction I like to make with TKOs. Was it her chin failing her, or was it a positional thing? It goes down as like a ground and pound TKO, where on paper it looks like a positional thing. But this was her chin failing her once again. So that sucks for her health as a fighter, because I love Amanda Ribas. I'm sure we all do. She's fucking awesome. But yeah, she's definitely more vulnerable than most. And for Maycee Barber, I should dwell on her performance here. It was the performance of her career so far. And she's gotten plenty of nice victories, big finishes, but this was her best finish, her best scalp, her best victory. And, just an incredible moment. And she had the spotlight on her, co-main event, and gets a beautiful second round TKO again. But she cracked that chin. So, Maycee Barber, sky's the limit again. She is the future again. And for Amanda Ribas, that's rough. That's a rough loss again. I don't know exactly how many. I think she's got 4 losses now, and 3 of them are by knockout. The other one being to Caitlin Chukagian, but the losses are all by knockout. Maycee Barber, Poliana Viana, and Marina Rodriguez. So she's definitely a more vulnerable fighter, and this only it reinforced that. Justin Tafa and Austin Lane, that sucks. Tafa is fucked up. I want to see what happens with him. But, man, that did not look good. That did not look good at all. He got hit with, an eye poke from hell, like 2 of them. Looked like some fucking Mortal Kombat finish, it was just insane. And, yeah, I really hope he's all right. And for Austin Lane, whatever, that was some weird eye poke, whatever. He was in the middle of throwing, like, a right punch, and he hit him with, like, the left double eye poke there. Shit like that's going to happen. But, not the way he wanted to make his debut. I just hope Justin Tafa's all right. That's all that my takeaway is from that fight. So, and you know what? There's a chance he might not be. I don't know. But hopefully he is. David Onama. Holy shit. David Onama and Gabriel Santos. This was an incredible comeback knockout. David Onama is a guy that has never been finished. Even though he's a guy that I consider kind of vulnerable. Like, he's a guy I think, it seems like I expect him to get finished. But he's never been finished, and he showed he was able to take it in every department against Gabriel Santos, who is awesome, by the way. Gabriel Santos is now 0-2 in the UFC. He's the best fighter who's 0-2 in the UFC. I don't know who else is 0-2, but I'd guarantee Gabriel Santos is the best. This is one of those guys that, man, it could be like RDA. RDA started off his career. Rafael Dos Anjos going 0-2 in the UFC and eventually became champion. I think Gabriel Santos, it excites me that he's officially underrated now. But that guy is awesome. Just his chin failed him here. And David Onama, He turned it up in the end. It wasn't like he just caught him with a lucky punch. I think Onama was trying to pick his spots and manage his energy and make shit happen down the stretch. And he did tame the newcomer, even though, their experience is somewhat similar. I think Santos might even have more experience. Don't quote me on that. But Onama looked fantastic. Fantastic. Showed he was able to take it and always dangerous and just has that concussive power deep into the second round as well. And just looked incredible. He was in a bad spot, too, in a body triangle in the beginning of that round. And Gabriel Santos is a very good finisher, very good fighter. And I think he was more skilled overall than Onama. But Onama was skilled enough to survive, keep himself in the fight, and he had enough intangibles going where he won that fight, cracked him in round 2. So, fantastic performance from David Onama. My estimation of him as a fighter goes way, way up there. And for Gabriel Santos, although I guess my estimation of him drops a little bit, I still think the world of him based on his 2 performances against Lerone Murphy and David Onama here. So I can't wait to see that guy fight again. And I have it in my head, I'm looking forward to betting on him because I think the world of him as an 0-2 fighter. But I don't want to dwell too much on that. David Onama is fantastic. And he showed everything. Good submission defense, that body triangle. Also that armbar. When Gabriel Santos put him in that armbar, which, by the way, check out Dustin Hazelett versus Josh Berkman if you haven't seen it. I think it's the Ultimate Fighter Season 7 finale. I always have to flex my fucking MMA knowledge. But that's the armbar that Hazelett hit, and Santos hit that beautiful armbar on him as well. And it was very tight, and he kept working it. But David Onama has really sound defense, a lot of heart, and defensively, he's very sound every which way. That brings me to Brendan Allen versus Bruno Silva. This was an awesome fight. This is another one that, it didn't last too long, but I feel like it could have been fight of the night just because of how action-packed it was. Brendan Allen is a guy that, moving forward, I will say, it looked like he was rocked in the Bruno Silva fight. I do think Allen is a little vulnerable, but here he showed great defense. Anytime he got cracked, he shelled up and was returning with big counters, well-timed counters, and with a lot of firepower behind him, and kept himself out of those, precarious situations with Bruno Silva all over him. And it wasn't long after that he cracked him himself, sat him on his ass, and then won the fight. Brendan Allen on top. It didn't take long. I think it was under a minute in which he, shucked his legs aside and rear naked choked him. He got that choke pretty quickly, but of course, Bruno Silva was hurt, much like he was against Gerald Mearshart, who was in Brendan Allen's corner. Bruno Silva was hurt, and he still didn't go down via strikes. It ended up taking a submission to get him out of there. As I mentioned in the pre-fight, Bruno Silva's only been tapped by really, really good submission artists. But also, as I mentioned, Brendan Allen is of that caliber. He's just such a deadly guy, and he's a big, strong, physical fighter as well. He had a lot of advantages here. But great performance from Brendan Allen. Really awesome. I don't know about him fighting Jared Cannonier. I understand you got to shoot for the stars, but, he's definitely moving up the rankings up. And I don't know what that was about. He's the first guy to wear all the colors in the octagon or whatever, but, everybody's got his priorities, I guess. That brings me to Neil Magny and Phil Rowe. This was a close battle. I thought Neil Magny won. I thought, he started to pull ahead towards the end, but it was a clinch battle, mainly. This whole fight was not too thrilling. And Phil Rowe, I thought, was the more dangerous striker and had some moments, some big strikes on the outside and on the inside, some mean elbows. And he made some use of his jiu-jitsu, turning the corner and wrapping up a body triangle for a few minutes. But he wasn't able to dominate Neil with the jiu-jitsu. Neil Magny's been put away by guys on the ground that, go through him like a buzzsaw. Gilbert Burns, Rafael Dos Anjos, Shavkat Rakhmonov, whoever the hell else. And Phil Rowe, he's just not that imposing of a wrestler, which takes away a lot of his opportunities. But Still, Rowe made it very close. I thought he was very much in the realm of winning a decision. Just it went to Magny. Magny's more of a workhorse. You can count on him to make use of typically of his height and reach advantage. Here he had none, but still he made use of his long limbs and had more volume. Just a better work rate, which is usually how Neil Magny wins the fight. So, great performance from him, Neil Magny, and Phil Rowe. It sucks to see him lose like that. It wasn't a bad fight, but yeah, he was outgunned there, by a guy that's just a fucking workhorse. Randy Brown versus Wellington Turman. Randy Brown gets another decision victory. He had to scratch and claw for this one. Wellington Turman, I feel like I've seen him lose this type of fight before, but he was competitive, and he did drop down in weight for the first time, even though he was still fighting a guy with the frame of a light heavyweight. Yeah, Wellington Turman's a good fighter. His chin held up, not that it was tested too much. And Randy Brown, he made use, kind of like I mentioned about Phil Rowe a minute ago. He made use of his long frame and won some positions there. Wrapped up a body triangle, I believe. But in general, just, he got the better of Turman by having a better work rate. Better work rate. He's a big, tall guy, difficult to get to on the outside. And on the inside, Randy Brown's pretty damn rough. He's a pretty rough guy, and I thought he won the physicality battle. So, tough loss for Wellington Turman. It wasn't the worst debut, and I thought he performed well, in the third round. But overall, it was too little too late. So, not the best fight on this card, but good win for Randy Brown. Mateusz Rebecki, which I'll call him Rebecki, in future videos. But for now, I realize it's Rebecki, so I'll call him that for this fight here. But he took out Loik Rajabov in incredible fashion. Just really the leg kicks were the story of this fight. He beat the shit out of him, beat him where he couldn't stand, and then got him out of there. I thought Loik, he's never been finished before, although he came close at in the second round of his previous fight. But very durable guy, just outgunned here. Outgunned, had the fight taken from him with leg kicks, which makes Rebecki look like a much better fighter than even I considered him to be. I thought he was a very good fighter, but here my estimation of him has gone up incredibly, being the first guy to put Rajabov away, and doing so with such a diverse attack, the leg kicks and, of course, the punches and everything else. I thought this was just a picture-perfect performance. A fight that I totally got wrong. Not that my heart was totally behind Loik Rajabov, but I thought he would add a little more here. And I didn't think leg kicks would be the deciding factor. So great performance from Mateusz Rebecki. He's 2-0 now and really leveled up in my eyes. And for Rajabov, he's going to need some time to heal. And, hopefully he can get back to it, because that guy's a fucking tank. And, he's still got some ways to go. Tafa Ricci beat Jillian Robertson. This was another shutout, pretty much. Maybe not a total shutout, but Tafa Ricci looked awesome. Jillian Robertson did not. Tafa Ricci won the wrestling battle. She was able to defend those takedowns from Jillian. Jillian had her bouncing around on one leg, with a few single leg attempts. But Tafa was just impossible to wrangle. She was too sound, and on the feet, which is where most of the fight took place, she was the much better striker. Just much better movement, much sharper strikes, and much faster than Jillian Robertson. Jillian is a bigger, stronger girl, and if she's able to get a hold of you, that's going to work in her favor. But here, she wasn't really able to get a hold of Tafa Ricci, and even when she was, Tafa Ricci is just a fucking tank, too difficult to take down. I thought Tafa Ricci fought a perfect fight, mixing in those takedowns to keep Jillian Robertson guessing, and really excelling in the wrestling realm. I thought the takedowns came pretty easily, which only opened up her striking. So, really good performance from her. Can't wait to see who she fights next. And for Jillian Robertson, yeah, it sucks. I know she was angling for a fight with Mackenzie Dern, the battle of the two submission artists, and she's not going to get that now. But she's experienced enough setbacks where, I'm sure she's going to be going on a winning streak sooner than later. Joshua Van beat Jalgas Zhumagulov by split decision. What else? I think I said this in maybe not this preview for Jalgas, but one of his other previews for the last month or two, because he's had a bunch of cancellations. If you're able to bet on Jalgas's opponent, whoever it is, by split decision, you should bet on that. You should put your life savings on it, and it'll probably work out for you. That was a clear decision, in my opinion. I did not think he was in the realm of winning it, but I thought it was close enough. Just much like the Amir Albazi fight, this is an example of Jalgas Zhumagulov fading a little bit. I thought he had his best round in round one and then was just being beaten to the punch. Joshua Van was just too quick for him, too sound fundamentally, and I think left no real openings. And the wrestling realm, Jalgas Zhumagulov, I thought he might have been able to rip him to the mat, which is the one way Joshua Van lost, although it was more, of a submission attack. I think, this that really kept Joshua Van in this fight, and he was the better striker overall and schooled Jalgas Zhumagulov down the stretch. But it does go down as a split decision, which is a nice little stat for Jalgas, because most of his losses are by split decision. But again, this one I think they got right. This and the Albazi fight are the only decisions that were right. But he lost this one. And Joshua Van, he took this fight on very short notice, and he was the last man standing, better fighter down the stretch. Just an incredible performance from Joshua Van. I should mention that before I move on. I thought that was very impressive. Taking out the seasoned veteran by being the sharper fighter down the stretch. And Jalgas is I can't say he's a good point fighter because he usually loses on points. But he's a guy that's very comfortable fighting in a competitive 15-minute fight or 25-minute fight. So Joshua Van leveled up there. That brings me to fight of the night, in my opinion. Chepe Mariscal versus Trevor Peek. This was a very, very, very fun fight. Action-packed. Every punch that was thrown was like a killer punch, especially from Trevor Peek. Trevor Peek is awesome. That guy was throwing down. He was a very game fighter on the ground, put in some very dangerous positions. A rear naked choke from hell that I thought was done. And he just did not stop fighting. Got tossed around like a pizza dough multiple times and just kept going. And everything he threw was to kill. And the strikes he took from Mariscal were also very impressive. My estimation of his chin has gone up, even though Mariscal was clearly a smaller fighter. But for Mariscal, much like Joshua Van, he took this fight on very short notice and he excelled. I thought he had the overall better skill set than Peek. That was evident. He just couldn't match his power and overall physicality. That was his one disadvantage there. But still, he dominated in this fight largely. He took his share of, concussive blows from Peek. But he gave him right back. He was a much sharper striker. A lot of, taunting. He did that Matador thing in round 3, which looked really good because then he caught Peek coming in with a big shot afterwards. It was a nice highlight for him. But Mariscal was just a much niftier fighter on the ground. And on the feet, a lot of back fists and weird shit, but still, overall, the much better striker. Really make Peek look limited. It was kind of like a Matador versus a bull at some points. And that's why he did that taunt. But excellent debut for Mariscal. Easily the fight of the night. This was a fight that I'm definitely going to rewatch. It was so much fun. And Mariscal, again, taking this fight on short notice and being the last man standing, the guy that was working harder and fighting a really hard fight for 15 minutes. Because even though it was kind of dominant, he was still hit with, a lot of hard shots in every round. This was dominant, but also kind of competitive. And definitely a hard fight, no matter what. A very hard fight, and just an excellent debut for Mariscal. And for Trevor Peek, he finally lost his first fight, and a lot of holes showed themselves here. He was, he's limited. He's a limited guy, but as far as intangibles, I think he's got every one of them. Heart, chin, grit, power, but still limited technically. And he's got a polish up his game, because here, this was a guy taking his fight on short notice, a UFC newcomer. Chepe Mariscal, even though I think he certainly belongs in the UFC, he hasn't proven himself yet. So Trevor Peek, he's definitely not, he's at the bottom end of the UFC in my opinion. But still, as far as excitement goes, he's the most exciting fighter that ever lived, as far as I'm concerned. He's like fucking Justin Gaethje. Can't wait to see him fight again. Can't wait to see Mariscal fight again too. Fucking incredible fight. That brings me to Jack Jenkins defeating Jamal Emmers by split decision, I think. I had a 30-27 Emmers, I'm not going to lie. I can't say it was a robbery, though. I wrote down 10-9 Emmers for volume in round 1, but I said it's possible. I wrote down possible, like it's possible it goes for Jenkins. And then for round 2, I wrote down 10-9 Emmers, I suppose. Meaning, I suppose it's possible in another fucking dimension that Jack Jenkins won that round as well. So I can't call it a robbery, but still I thought Jamal Emmers got the better of Jack Jenkins, and this was a very bad decision. Very bad. Emmers was, it was a range battle on the feet between the kicks and the punches. And Jamal Emmers, I think he was a little reluctant to just rely on that jab. Maybe he was countered or something early on or whatever. But in general, the jab wasn't there for him. But still, his movement and his long, straight punches were really effective. And I thought they gave him the edge in every round over Jack Jenkins. And as well as the wrestling, taking him down. And even in the third round, hitting a beautiful sweep. Or just a straight-up reversal to find top position in the end. Which, if he didn't find that top position, I thought maybe he could have lost that round. So, a really good battle. Again, I can't call it a robbery, but I thought Jamal Emmers got the better of him. I was sure he was going to get the nod, and then, sometimes it just goes the other way. For Jack Jenkins, look, he scratched and clawed in every realm, put himself in the realm of winning, and, that's the way the cookie crumbled. It went his way, and that's because of his, his effort here. He was very much in most rounds anyway. And I thought the leg kicks were very, very effective. They weren't effective enough where they slowed down Jamal Emmers, but they were absolutely scoring points. You could see they were really bothering Jamal Emmers. I mean, that guy's got leg kicks from hell, Jenkins. So, close battle, went his way. I thought they got it wrong. Whatever the fuck. And then the first fight of the night, Cedriquez Dumas takes out Cody Brundage. And Dumas, look, I don't want to say he got lucky because he showed a lot more as a fighter. My estimation of him as a fighter definitely jumped. I can't say skyrocketed. But Cody Brundage, my estimation of his fighter IQ has fucking plummeted. And it wasn't too high to begin with. I considered him on the lower end of the fighter IQ spectrum. But holy shit. Man, that guy is reliant on that guillotine. And I know it's easy to be an armchair quarterback. And I am the guy, I think, in the pre-fight video, I said it's his best submission, the guillotine. And it certainly is. But the one thing you're losing is position with the guillotine choke. You're conceding position. If it doesn't go your way, you're fucked. I think he was trying to get the guillotine, on step 2, instead of trying to get the arm triangle choke on step 9. And he would have been better off fighting that way, trying to keep a guy like Dumas on his back, keep him uncomfortable. And instead, he kept putting himself on his back. And Cody Brundage is skilled enough to survive, especially with a youngster who's not too versatile on top of him. But Cody Brundage was not skilled enough to make anything happen once he was on his back. That was just the end of the round every time. And in all 3 rounds, it was a guillotine choke that got him there. And the third round was actually his best guillotine. That was very close. Maybe not very close, but closer than the other 2. But still just a horrible move. Horrible move. He should have learned his lesson. He should have learned it from the fucking Rodolfo Vieira fight. He did the same thing in his last fight. Went for a guillotine choke, and that was the end of it. But here, he wasn't fighting Rodolfo Vieira, so he was able to survive. Still, it was a bad move going for the guillotine choke. That guy's too reliant on that, and he doesn't have an answer if things don't go his way. For Dumas, I thought he showed some new wrinkles, had some good control over Cody Brundage. locked up some back control. I don't know if he put in a body triangle or whatever, but he's got the long legs where he could probably get it done. But he definitely showed a whole new skill set. You know, it was on the lower end here. You know, fighting Cody Brundage. I don't know if Cody Brundage is long for the UFC, although he did take this fight on short notice. But Dumas looked good. He looked good here, even if he was given each round, you know, because of a guillotine choke. He was given the round on a platter. He still ate it up, and he shut down Cody Brundage. So, good win for him, for Cody Brundage. Horrible loss. Very winnable fight, especially with that takedown he hit early on. He took him down and went into like full mount or almost full mount within 10 seconds. And then he went for the guillotine, and that was pretty much the end of the fight for him. Overall, an excellent fucking event, though. Excellent event. Really enjoyed this one. And, yeah, that about wraps it up here. Like, share, subscribe, all that horseshit, and check out my other videos.